Good morning, everyone. Welcome to World Travel Market 2017 Day 2. My name's Paul Nelson. I look after all the press and PR for the portfolio events for World Travel Market. And it's my great pleasure to introduce this Nielsen report that we have for you today. So we love research here at World Travel Market, and we know that all you guys do as well. The sessions are always really popular. So we went to Nielsen and we asked them to pull together some research that looked at advertising and how the travel industry is advertising, and maybe see if there's any tricks that the travel industry may be missing, and maybe how it might be able to do things differently. And Jens and his team have come up with the research, and we found an angle around responsible tourism. So without further ado, I shall pass you over to Jens, who will go through the research. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for coming. I know it's the Ministers' Summit next door, so appreciate it. Welcome to our presentation. Starting ladies first, actually, and certainly more charming. Here's Anne-Sophie Wagner from Hamburg, from our Nielsen Media Insights team. I am Jens Brockmann. My group is Nielsen Global at Intel, located in Amsterdam. Today we will talk about the travel media market. We will show global advertising trends, talk about how we can focus on responsible tourism in market communication. And Sophie and I, when we prepared, we immediately liked the topic, and we were curious how sustainability is represented in the marketing activities of your industry. So we have two parts for you. Let me get this. And before I say that, I was supposed to say that you can post your questions via Slido, and we can pick them up. Anne-Sophie speaks Swedish and German and English. I speak Spanish and Dutch and English and German, so we should actually cover lots of languages today. So the first part is a more academic lecture. We took advertising expenditure data and started analyzing. Some of those quantitative results we thought might be interesting for the event, so we don't want to hide them from you. We will first present results based on media data from 24 countries worldwide. We compare the travel industry with other industry. We will drill down to sectors and the media. So this slide requires a little bit of explanation. So to take you with us, what we are going to present, let me explain what information we are working from. Firstly, above-the-line advertising tells you that so-called below-the-line advertising is not included. So if you have a stand here at the event and you're paying for it, that kind of communication expenditure is usually not systematically tracked. Neither would be street promotion or point-of-sale advertising, and also a lot of digital advertising is actually below the line, which is everything behind a password. Secondly, above-the-line advertising must be public and trackable. So as shown on the left side of the slide, we use TV, radio, digital, newspapers, magazines, outdoor, and cinema, 7 major media types. Ads are being tracked from the widest range possible of individual media channels and titles. Then a cost is assigned on the rate, based on the rate cards. So individual TV stations and magazines, they would tell us how much they would charge if it's in a certain slot of the day or on a certain page. And that rate is what we apply. And then any advertised brand is then referenced to an advertiser, and it's bucketed into a categorization. So take Jaguar F-Type. And Jaguar F-Type is advertised by Jaguar Land Rover, and then you put it in a categorization: automotive, motor cars, and sport cars. And then Hilton hotels would fall, of course, into travel and tourism, and then put into accommodation, and then into hotel chains. This categorization process then lets you compare how much Hilton, in this instance, spends on TV versus magazines or on digital versus radio. You can benchmark your own spend against your competitors, or you can look at the amount of ad spend you need to put in if you go into a new market with your company or tourist board. And then, of course, your media agency uses that data to look into media KPIs and to plan campaigns. It is important to understand that this data does not replicate actual spend. I did Donald Trump here, right? Media buying is different, but the data science we apply is the same for all competitors, and so it is a measurement of advertising pressure in each country. The right side of the slide illustrates what is called owned media. Any media or communication channel a company itself owns and controls, like the magazine in front of you when you fly, that's owned media. And of course, nowadays, as you can see there, all of the companies have actually what we call digital shopping windows with various engaging media channels. The data is all about competitive information. Hilton, in the center here, invests into media type, into paid media, and they expect returns. More guests, better image, for example. Same for owned media, of course. The data allows benchmarking their own activity against others, and that can be for Hilton or British Airways or Expedia or any tourist board. So after this recap of methodology, so you know what data we are working from, let's look into some data. The data universe, we use 24 countries, as I said, in which Nielsen is tracking this media. This is around 75% of the worldwide ad spend. The period we looked at is from 2012 till first half year 2017, and all 7 media types I showed earlier are covered. To make the data better comparable, we also weighted some of the countries. The travel industry breaks down to accommodation, air transport, holidays, retail, and tourist sports. Others here consist of theme parks and various transports like boats and road and rail and so forth. So we made it a little bit more digestible. So let's go with data. Boom. Worldwide overall trend for travel and tourism. Long-term advertising is in line with the overall industry development. It's positive. However, when you put the starting point at 2014, the trend would be almost flat. This has to do mainly with year 2015, and we will look into that in a moment. But now let's see how the USA is dominating the worldwide trend in advertising. So this mountain range shows the dramatically high share of US advertising, which is, by the way, the case in any other industry as well. The US is simply by far the biggest advertising market. China might come near in a distant future. So for the US alone, we can state a quite steep increase of advertising in every second quarter. You see this little waves there. And then it goes down 25 to 40% in quarter 3. The graphic also shows how the worldwide positive trend is fed by the US over the 5 years. We see this 2014 high and then the 2015 dip down. And if you look at the first half year 2017, so we are at a high. Q3, which is over, but the data is not available, will go down again. And I guess we will end up with a 0 growth in the US. But let's have a look to this slide without the US to see things a bit clearer. So for the sake of presentation flow, we selected 8 countries. Of course, all analysis we show can be made for any other country. So this looks beautiful and colorful, and it already comes to show that advertising peaks differently by country, as well as the level of advertising is very different. Peaks are more or less pronounced, so the UK peaks very steep, and others are flat. And then we have also, against the overall advertising trend, negative trends. So, for example, Germany starts like with the Alps there and then ends as highlands, so it's going down. This is a see-through version. And you can see that China and the UK increases advertising pressure, clearly going up year by year. The UK shows the strongest peaks of all countries, always in Q1. We will see that these strong peaks appear also in other smaller travel sectors. And though by habitants and economic power, the bigger country than the UK is Germany, here in a red line, and they see a decline. The level of advertising is for longer than a year already less than in Australia, although Australia has like a third of the inhabitants of Germany. Italy and Spain is in in purple and light blue. Two of the most popular European holiday destinations are going strict in parallel with a Q2 peak every year, actually May, June. This has to do with August, which is in those countries actually like a bank holiday month. So if you work with Italians or Spaniards, you know that the country is simply a standstill, except for tourism, of course. And so Spain maybe sees a decline overall. Worth mentioning, Spain and Italy are by far bigger than Switzerland, but the Swiss advertising investment is not only more stable, but it's also higher. With Germany's relatively low advertising investment in mind, it seems size doesn't matter. The number of inhabitants or the economic power of a country plays a certain role, yes, but travel advertising activity is heavily influenced by travel and holiday traditions. So we can see that for UK, Australia, Switzerland, Hong Kong, they are rich and they go abroad. They go outside their country. Like in the UK, Chinese advertising spend levels are high, increasing. China peaks in Q3, half-yearly shifted versus the UK. Chinese holidays are very much around the Golden Week in early October. So it's like wealthy Chinese people go abroad, and at home there are many celebrations. Chinese New Year in January, February seems to slow down advertising a little bit. So yeah, I find this personally interesting. So if a company wants to roll out in a country where they haven't been before, it's really worth studying what is the typical advertising pattern in the country. Let's have a look to the sectors. So largest individual travel sector is holidays. Retail is somewhat confounded with holidays, so it doesn't differ always very sharply. Holiday packages are peaking in Q1 when people are starting to plan and think about holidays. So it's this surprise moment in the beginning of the year. You are still with your New Year's resolutions, and then you get all this advertising and think like, oh, okay, let's talk to my honey bun tonight and discuss a little bit. But there's, of course, a commercial twist. Early bookers get discounts, which might be bad. But of course, you don't have to be a financial guru to understand that when you have a lot of bookings at the beginning of the year, that it's going to be probably a good year overall. And depending on that, you can adapt your marketing strategy. Looking at the periodicity and pattern of the sectors, we can see that air transport is peaking in Q4. My unproved assumption is that airlines are trying to increase advertising pressure in those moments when air traffic slows down. Advertising for weekend breaks or year-end trips are common during this period, and Christmas and New Year is close. So also airlines are more sensitive to cash flow because of their immense high ongoing operational costs. So it makes sense to advertise anti-cyclical to their busiest times. So airlines want us to fly at all seasons. There's a noticeable decline for airlines in Q2 2017. This is due to a decrease and change of media strategy of 3 US airlines. Remember, US is always the biggest. Delta, Southwest Airlines, and JetBlue, they have dramatically decreased their advertising in this period, so in this year. So here are two sectors thrown in one graph, which is accommodation and tourist boards. Both are peaking in Q2, but tourist boards peak more pronounced. Tourist boards probably know better than people realistically start planning holidays in spring, well, in the Northern Hemisphere. In per se, tourist boards, advertising is brand building. It's not transactional. They don't want to sell you something. They want that you think about their country whenever you plan your holiday. They are publicly funded, and it's remarkable that advertising investments are as high as for accommodation worldwide, thinking that accommodation is pretty much large commercial groups and not publicly funded. Accommodation is also very different in that their business comes from business travelers as much or even more as from leisure travelers. Hence, to create awareness is an all-year task. So here is all together. We added the other sector as well. They summarize corporate image, rail and road, boat, ship transport, and theme parks and resort. So the latter, theme parks and resort, are advertised very heavily in the US. Many of our US friends spend weekend breaks and family trips in theme parks, and it's very simple: high demand, high variety, high competition, and you will find then high advertising. That's the formula, and theme parks in the US are driving the other sector here. So overall, if you look at the graphic here, the individual sectors really have different missions and challenges to deal with. Now some country trends. So first of all, some global findings. Tourism belongs to the top 3 worldwide industries, together with food and chemicals. It is even bigger than automotive in terms of export-import billings. So it's like 1 in 11 people work in the travel industry. Yet in the Ad Age ranking of top 100 advertisers, we only see 2 travel companies. The Priceline Group, which runs Priceline.com, Booking.com, Agoda, rental cars, is ranked 26 with a year-on-year increase of 16%. And then we have Expedia on rank 42 with a 31% increase year-on-year. In comparison, food and automotive have each 3 companies in the top 10. We have Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and Nestlé on the one hand, and then Volkswagen, General Motors, and Daimler. It's in the nature of the travel industry, and there are just many local players. There are major, mid-sized, small enterprises. There's not so much consolidation as the other industry, and that's why we think that at the moment you find travel industry companies relatively low. Let me explain this graphic. The concept of this graphic will be the same for the next slides when we go into individual countries. What you see here is the year-on-year percent change by quarter. So the orange bar for food in Q3 2013 tells you that advertising investment increased 5% compared to Q3 2012. So if you follow with your eye the bars in orange to the right, then you can see investment turned negative in Q3 15 and then back positive in Q3 2016. In these trends, year 2015 saw, specifically in September, another financial crisis where stock markets experienced very heavy losses in China. This affects advertising, and we see that here. For automotive, we know there's the inexcusable diesel scandal, and as a consequence, some car companies were lowering significantly their advertising budgets, budgets. 2016, we can see a recovery within automotive and tourism. Food stayed a bit more moderate. This year, we can already see that automotive seems to be reflecting on the future role. Is it electric? Is it diesel still there? What are they going to do? So to advertise or not, that is the question. And that is not the question for travel. They do advertise more. Let's look at the main sectors within travel. So in this slide and the following ones, you will see a share of spent pie on the left side in million US dollars for year 2016. This will help to relate the growth bars better, and the stacked bars help you to see which sector contributes how much to the overall growth or decline. In 2017, we see a mixed bag for advertising year-on-year change. Retail has increased budgets in the first half year around 4%, holidays to a lesser extent at 1.5%. Air transport and accommodation have slightly reduced their budgets. Keep in mind the US is dominating all sectors. In general, accommodation, when you are following the purple blocks, seems to vary a lot. The contribution is against the full industry. So a contribution to growth, as seen in Q1 16, means a very steep increase within the sector, as it's only 12% of the pie. I hope you get the logic. So you see the pie, if it's a very small piece of the pie, but the contribution to the overall industry is high, then they have increased a lot. Let's go through a few countries. First one, Australia. In Australia, advertising budgets are high for the amount of people there. You can see 520 million US in 2016. Australia is also a top 3 country of international travel expenditure per capita. Retail and holidays together show large year-on-year differences. In Q1 2017, combined more than 20%. Usually such increases indicate an optimistic outlook of the industry further into 2017. Tourist boards, the red stacked bars, have reduced their advertising between 14 and 15 after a single large injection of money in Q4 2013. In Q1 2016, there's a large increase of investment contributing to the overall growth at 3%. For a sector which is less than 10%, that's a lot. Air transport is seen often on the negative side in this slide, and so the negative series adds up. Maybe this is an effect of less transactional advertising of the airlines going to travel planning sites. China. China saw a massive increase of advertising year-on-year with more than 40% in Q4 2015. It continued for 1 year until Q3 2016 with whopping 30%. You remember the country comparison earlier? China, UK are going up. So the observation here on the quarter increase goes hand in hand. And the drivers are holiday packages, which is not coming as a surprise because they are anyway the biggest piece of the pie. It seems, however, that in 2016 activity has increased. Since it is a small sector with 4% shares for tourist boards, sorry, I'm talking about tourist boards now, the contribution to growth is small too. But the relative increase for tourist boards in China has been almost double. So this is a sign that more regions and countries are trying to persuade Chinese people to visit countries and regions. The best at last, or let me rephrase, America first and then the best, the UK, after this. As you well know, everything is bigger in America, and that is much true for advertising. So if in the US there's a change of 15%, that is more money than most of the countries spend overall. So it's really, really big. Because it's so big, you can see that the swings are a little bit more moderate between plus 15 and minus 10. So it's a mature market and a big market. What is striking is a significant increase of retail advertising in the first half year 2017. That again shows optimism in the industry. Tourist boards are following that trend, and we know from our data that it is often US regional tourist board advertising. So 132 million citizens in the US have actually a passport and are actually able to leave the country, and 67 million actually did leave the country in 2016. That's 1 out of 5. So it makes sense that you have local advertising, because for 80% of the people in the US, it's just a domestic affair. It's interesting how in the last 2 quarters we have sectors either quite positive or quite negative. Therefore, this pointed headline, it's more meant as a food for thought. Final country, the UK. So I'm sorry for the headline, BREXIT, but bags packed. But it Thank you. So let's go back. Thank you very much. Okay, so Brexit, but bags packed. So the United Kingdom. We can see that there's mainly growth in travel advertising. You see the bars, the positive bars are higher than the negative bars. Overall changes are contained. And also if you look at the 2016 ad spend overall is $913 million. That is a lot of money for a country which is a 20th of the inhabitants of China. And China is not even higher than the UK. The holiday sectors invest year on year at high rates, often over 5%. In the first 2 quarters of this year, we can see 9% and 7% growth, a trend all the way back to 2014. This means that the holiday-loving UK get plenty and plenty of offers, and over the years also more and more to choose from. Tourist boards had a period of reduced activity between 13 and 15, if you want to follow here the red stacks again. In quarter 3 and 4 and 16, that picked up, actually dramatically given the low share of 6% of tourist boards. The increase we see end of 2016 is driven by foreign tourist boards. Dubai and the US increased activity in the second half of 2016, maybe as a reaction of the Brexit, which was on the 23rd of June 2016. Sad day, I find. Accommodation is a relatively small sector. As such, 1% and 4% changes indicate much larger changes within the sector. So in sum, UK shows positive trends. Advertising investments are very high compared to other countries, and the Brexit is not yet affecting the travel industry from where we sit. You maybe know you will know better than we do. But we know from our other surveys that people are getting worried. Traveling in and from the UK will be just more hassle, and it will be more expensive. But yeah, currently bags are packed, so off you go enjoying holidays. Now Sorry, this prompter is not with me. Okay, so let's go to media channels. Just a couple of slides on media channels. Overall, we see that TV is gaining media share, and actually surprisingly high. TV is still king of advertising. So look at it as rivers, right? From left to right over time, to all media making up 100%. And so the wider it gets, the higher is the media share of spend, right? So newspapers, though still second strongest media, is in decline. Follow the orange river, and you can see that. And you don't need a glaze in a crystal ball that unfortunately newspapers will go more down. But it can be also said that a lot of the advertising will go into the online versions. in the interest of time, let's move on. Yes. So this pies is just to illustrate a little bit this individual sectors, individual countries. And I don't want to dwell too much on this slide, but you can see the 4 countries. You can see outside the media share per country. And then you can see that the blue section outside is always bigger than the inside section. And the inside section tells you the media share of all other industries. So what you can say is travel invests relatively less in TV than other industries. The opposite is true for newspapers. Newspaper share is very high compared to all other industries, which means that this is a media type which is more used. And it makes sense. What you sell from a travel point of view is often highly explanatory, so you need the picture and you need to drill down to see what it actually says. Is something which print is just unbeatable. Put your advertising in a magazine, in a special interest magazine, and it brings the message better across. So my final part before Anne-Sophie takes over is concentrating in just a few slides on tourist boards. Tourist boards for us, for Nielsen, is for the global at Intel part, which I represent, is interesting because it's per se an international industry, and for us we work with numerous tourist boards to see how investment is done, and so that is close to my heart. So and also to mention already, because we were talking about we have responsible tourism in our headline. We had a very, very hard time to actually find advertising which deserves a responsible tourism mark. We really went through hundreds of ads, and we didn't find a single campaign, a mass campaign, which we could present here as best practice or something. That was originally our intention. We worked through the data. There's just not a lot there. So let's look at findings from tourist boards, and I will apply what I just said to that later. Very short here, you can see tourist boards really peak in May every single year. Holidays in comparison have 2 peaks, one in January and for the planners, and then one for late deciders in July. Tourist boards are publicly funded, so the money is a little bit tighter than for the holiday advertisers. Spend, though, for tourist boards have not increased for the last 5 years. Digital advertising. We found that tourist boards used internet advertising at almost the same level back in 2013. They then reduced ad spend, and then only during the last 12 months they actually started investing more into the digital media, whereas holidays, you can see, is like more exponentially going up. Might be that tourist boards eventually are less reactive to those trends. Now, tourist boards in key markets, so we chose the UK because we are in the UK, Germany, I don't know why, and Australia. Well, we chose them because they have the highest international travel expenditure, according to the WTO, around $1,000 per capita. And you can see that the UK again has this very pronounced peaks, much more than other countries. The progressing decline of tourist boards, though, in the UK is because there's much less activity for domestic tourist boards, although they are still strong. Australia and Germany also show decreasing trends over a 5 years period. This slide is a heat sheet. So for a quick glimpse, you can see how tourist boards advertise in countries. Across the top, you see the specific countries and regions. and how they advertise into our international traveling countries. So it's not a surprise that domestic advertising is strong. So Australian regional tourist boards, they of course advertise a lot into Australia, the same in Germany and the UK. And also those 3 countries are in the top 8 destinations, so you can make nice holidays in your own country. Neighboring countries are advertising very strong. New Zealand and Australia, Austria and Switzerland and Germany, and then Ireland and the Channel Islands in the UK. So, and Jersey, by the way, at a quite high level, so I guess there's some money there, right? And of course, for the US, Australia, South Africa, Canada, who are English-speaking, the UK is, of course, a very attractive holiday destination simply because there is no language barrier and you have incredible sites. So London is actually the second, to my information, the second most visited city in 2016. And after, by the way, Bangkok. Paris came third, so as far as to my data I have. Remarkably, Israel is advertising in Germany significantly. And also remarkably, US didn't even make it on the heat sheet for Germany, although Trump's granddad is unfortunately German. As a final word on the UK, the tail of tourist boards spending in the UK is very long. You can see it down there. Many tourist boards advertise in the UK. And this comes to show that the UK is very attractive for holidays and an important business destination. The UK people are big travelers worldwide, and this comes to show in the data. And now we are going to more juicier stuff, let's say, more tangible. So, as I said, despite our best efforts, we were struggling to find any major campaign with elements of responsible tourism. So these examples take nature as a theme. Outdoor tourism, escaping crowded and urban places, but really no responsible tourism feel-good factor. In travel advertising, it is a catch-22 to sell responsible tourism. People want to relax, consume, escape, party hard. You don't want to think about people suffering poverty or, the effect of going into a Norwegian fjord with a cruise liner. So, and 4% actually click offsetting carbon dioxide when booking flights. 96% do not do it. The amounts are tiny, yet people may think it's not my business or doubt where the money is going or demand states should take care of it. On the right side of the slide, you see an example to incentivize taking responsibility. Whilst not a tourism ad, it could be an idea how to draw attention with a positive twist. And the lower right shows the logo of Green Globe. On their website, you can see members by country. There are household names of hotel chains among them. We checked on the advertising in our advertising library. None of them has actually put the Green Globe logo on their advertising. It's so simple. Just, you can achieve that people feel better when they book that hotel. So UN Resolution 17193 from the 22nd of December 2015 was International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development 2017. I downloaded it. We are coming to an end of this year. From a mass advertising point of view, our data supports that there have been only niche attempts to raise awareness and or create marketable products. That's what we find in our data. So some intermezzo conclusions. So travel advertising is diverse. Travel advertising is more than other large industries diversified. Lodging, transport, the way to spend time during holidays, regional advertising, that are the cornerstones. Each of them contain a whole universe of different messages in their communication. Cultural. Travel is part of culture. Just by looking at top-line advertising figures, it comes to show how much travel, tourism, and holidays are influenced by culture. Countries can be more in love with their countries, like the US or Spain. Or countries are more adventurous, like Australia and the UK. Many countries do not give enough vacation days to properly travel. In other countries, holidays are simply not so important. So that is all part of culture. Individual traveling is closer connected to individual lifestyles than many other industries. So travel with style, travel in your lifestyle. You are how you travel. From your political views, your socioeconomic status to your personal interest. And this, by the way, and how Anne-Sophie will explain, is a great chance to earn money as well. And this concludes my part. Now, Anne-Sophie will be talking very concretely about sustainability and advertising. So, yeah, over from a Generation Xer to a millennial. Enjoy.
Yes, thank you very much, Jens. I am now coming to a part with less graphs and more pictures, because this is what my generation likes. So let's start with a sustainability topic. What does sustainability mean? As Jens just showed in his presentation, pure nature and unspoiled landscapes are a major selling point, but protecting this good is never in focus. However, many companies already support non-profit organizations. They are installing energy-efficient lighting. They recycle their waste. So they are already doing a lot to go a little bit into this sustainability part. And by integrating sustainability into their business models in whatever degree, companies can actually both help the society and increase the goodwill towards their brands. So if we look at this graph, we see this graph comes from a global survey of corporate social responsibility and sustainability that Nielsen did back in 2015. This survey was polled from more than 30,000 consumers from all over the world, so in 60 countries. And the sample has quotas based on age and sex, so that is really, these results are representative for the consumers all over the world. And what we see here is that already 66% of the consumers are willing to pay more for sustainable goods. And the good thing is that this is a growing number, because we came from 50% in 2013 and it went up to 55% in the year 2014. And as I said, this trend is just starting to grow. The good news is that especially younger people, so millennials that are born in the 1980s and 1990s, and also the Generation Z, that's the generation after the millennials, so the youngest generation right now, they are even more willing to pay for sustainable products compared, for example, to their parents' generation, which are the baby boomers. And it's also good to know that the millennials are not only more willing to pay more for sustainable products, they also trust in advertising a little bit more than everybody else. As you can see here, we have the different generations, and the percentage shows us how high the trust is in advertising and in the different media types. So the highest trust is still in advertisement that goes on TV, especially for the millennials. But as you can see, also 50% already trust in advertisement that goes online on the internet or on mobile devices. And we also see that the generation that trusts the advertising most is the generation that has the money, especially the millennials that are just already with their studies, started their first jobs. They are ready to spend money on products. They don't have to travel low budget anymore. And if you're wondering which media type is the best to influence your audience, it's TV ads, because they are highlighting a company's commitment to positive social and/or environmental impact and are influential in the path to purchase for 34% of the global respondents. So it's a concrete number that say that yes, TV advertisement is something that that influences me when I think about buying a product. However, brands that actively reinforce social commitment must amplify and socialize their message in different media channels, not only TV, but take social media, take magazines. It's always good to spread your message as broad as possible. Let's now come to some best practices, because I already saw a question here via Slido. How would a good campaign that advertises sustainability for tourism look like? And we really wanted to show you some best practices. Unfortunately, as Jens already told us, it was really hard to find something. But I'm going to show you later how to do it. Let's first start with something that's quite far away from the travel industry. It's milk. And what we see here is an advertisement from the Danish brand Arla and their product, milk from free-range cows. So for Arla, the sustainability and the quality of the products goes hand in hand, and this is exactly what they advertise. So what are they doing exceptionally good? They are building a story. So first of all, in their TV commercial, they tell people something about the product. Then in the print advertisement, they show the audience the people behind the product, the farmers. And in the end, they have a third advertisement that goes from the farmers to the audience, so that the people really see what they did. So as you can see on the left-hand side, we have a 25% pence extra that go back to the farmers. So it's a concrete benefit that this company gives towards sustainability, and this is what they show the audience. We have another example from the banking sector. So it's a sector that the majority of us will probably not connect with social responsibility. However, there are companies that apply these topics to their products. Like, for example, on the left-hand side, the German bank that says in their slogan, "Sustainability is easy." So they really want to demonstrate their audience that the consumer can do good without getting out of their comfort zone. And on the right-hand side, we have the ASN Bank, which is a Dutch bank that really focuses on sustainability. And they are also telling a story. They are taking concrete examples of projects that they are supporting. And in this case, we also have a concrete benefit again. It's the Oxfam card, or the gift card from Oxfam that you get when you open a bank account and you put money on it. It's something that you get back, the Oxfam card, so that you can, again, by yourself, do something good for the world when you shop in this Oxfam shop. So coming back to the travel industry, we have to say that many companies already put a focus on the topic social responsibility and sustainability. For example, the Scandic hotels. You all might know that back in 1993, the Scandic decided to become a leader in sustainability and drive the development of sustainability. So it was Scandic who founded the idea with hang up your towel if you don't want to use it again. On the one hand side, of course, it's a way to save money. And on the other hand, you can use it for your advertisement. You can still say, it is also something that protects the environment, so why don't you put it in your advertisement? We looked at the advertisement of Scandic, and we couldn't find anything that puts a focus on sustainability. The same applies for many air transportation companies. So this sector is, well, basically very far away from being green. However, even these companies have possibilities to make a positive impact on the environment. For example, with the offer of CO2 neutral flights. So KLM provides, for example, a service where you can compensate your personal CO2 emission by investing in CO2 reduction projects. However, the standard advertisement of KLM is just focusing on the price or on new destinations, but not on this particular topic. So in conclusion, the findings suggest a gap in product availability, but this is the lack of inventory, but this is also an opportunity of growth, because if you put this forward to the consumer, it's something that you can make new money with. The global report from Nielsen also shows that people actually asking for more affordable, healthy, convenient, and environmentally friendly products. So in fact, there's a notable gap between the percentage of the consumers wanting more eco-friendly products and those who say that they want to pay for it. And now I'm going to show you 4 ways how to win with sustainability. So what do you have to do to convince the audience? It's first of all, tell an emotional story and tell it in an easy language. Don't go too much in detail, just simply show what you are doing. Like, for example, the ASN Bank, show a concrete example of the farmer who got support by the projects of the ASN Bank. And highlight brand trust and commitment to social and environmental impact to drive purchases. So if you want to hire your brand trust, you can take this topic because it will also drive your purchases. It's talk about it in your communication, and it will impact the trust level of your brand. All in all, just advertise it. Yeah, use marketing to get the people to know about this thing. And last but not least, you could maybe already guess, as this generation, the millennials and the generation Z, is very interested in this topic, focus on them. So it's always good to have a target group to work towards. And you now might be wondering, but how am I going to do that? How am I going to approach these millennials? And this is what I'm going to show you now. I have 5 ways to connect with the millennial mindset. And first of all, please use the network. So of course this is social media, it's YouTube, it's Facebook and so on. The good thing about it, it's almost free to use. You just need a person who is really into this topic and can bring the content to the millennials. But also, just ask yourself, where is my target group? And this target group is also, for example, on festivals. So why don't you advertise on festivals? I just was this year on a festival and I saw commercial from Chanel on the festival, which is where I had my rubber boots and I really wasn't thinking about Chanel. So why don't you come with another sector and convince the audience where your audience is? Second, add benefits. And this is what we saw. There are like 2 ways of adding benefits. One way is to give a benefit to the consumer, like for example the Oxfam gift card, or to show the consumer what benefit he is giving. For example, we saw Arla that if you buy a bottle of milk, you give back 25 pence to the farmers. Next, give control. So it's always good when the audience feels that they have the control, that they can impact the product or that they have impact on how the product is working for the people behind it, so that they can build their own product in a way. And share your story. This is what I told you before. Use emotional and communication, because a story is something that your audience connects with easily and which builds trust to your brand. And last but not least, customize your ads. So as Jens said, why don't you put a logo of a sustainable, if you have such a certification of being sustainable, just put it on your advertisement and feel free also to focus on it. So yeah, through the process of researching, we were very surprised that we couldn't find really big campaigns that were focusing on it, but we see a huge opportunity to use this topic to grow your business. And thank you very much for your attention. We are here to answer questions. I already saw that we have some questions over Slido.
Yeah, we have 4 questions here. Some easy, some almost political. Let's start with the easy one. Do you also have statistics For smaller countries like Slovakia or Czech Republic, where tourism is on the rise, the answer is yes. We can source basically, all countries worldwide would be pushing it, but we can source about 90 countries and certainly the biggest advertising markets. The second one here on the screen is, do you think that in the coming years travel industry will have to invest more into internet advertising as the new generation becomes more powerful? Well, yes. You should already do this. There are, of course, companies like Facebook. They can already help you a lot in placing advertising. Whether or not it's a good thing is a different discussion. But if you use the framework, as Anne-Sophie just now said, about using the network of millennials, for example, those companies can, of course, help you. This is not something, again, which is easily traceable for us in the numbers we presented, but yes, digital will be maybe at one day the only advertising we actually see, because everything is anyway digital. So then, I like this one. Do you think that sustainability or responsible travel, oh, you see it on the screen, okay, is highly affected by cultures? And meant to say the Danish are nationalists, so they want to support their farmers. Yeah, I think Arla is a company, to my knowledge, maybe you know more about them, but Arla is really a company who started with helping the individual farmers to do something. And now to say to them, well, this is the Danish are nationalists, I don't...
It was actually advertisement that was published here in the UK. It was a Danish brand, but the advertisement you just saw was published in the UK.
Yeah, difficult to answer. Maybe somebody from the audience can make another comment on that. And even though Brexit doesn't affect the travel industry right now, do you think it will be in the coming months, and how? Yeah, difficult one. I think the UK is will stay a very interesting holiday destination. People from all over the world will continue to come. It doesn't really matter for US tourists if the UK is in the EU or not. But certainly from the continent, people will think twice to go to the UK, or not so easily come. I think there maybe the UK has to do something also in advertising to say, please continue to come, it's still easy to visit us. But we need to track that, we will see. How has the mix between ATL and BTL spend changed over time? I think the mix on that one is because digital is getting stronger and a lot of the digital advertising cannot be tracked. It's below the line, and therefore it's getting higher, and it's more easy to share. I don't know how many photos I already did here to share with friends. This kind of stuff is untraceable. Nevertheless, not all is digital. We know from other industries you cannot just go digital. You need still television to support brand building and so forth. That's why TV will stay a long time, and it will, of course, cross over with the system, with the way digital advertising is going. That you get addressable TV, and although Anne-Sophie and I would be neighbors and watch the same Olympic Games, we get different advertising. That will be the future. Is there a correlation between ad spends and spend on holidays per capita per country? Yes, there is. I would say yes. As seen with the UK, there's a lot of ad spend there, and you guys spend a lot of money for that. So in general, yes, there is a correlation. Do you want to take one?
Yeah, I can. The next one. We're talking about sustainability, but your slides say it's an opportunity for growth, a contradiction in terms. you are just talking about efficiency. So it's both. I mean, it's something you can take sustainability to build your brand trust, and this in the end and over the long term will help you to grow. So it's both a selling point and a feel-good factor for your audience. So yeah, it has two positive sides, I would say, and it's also growth, of course, because it's a new factor where you can, it's a new selling point that you can bring to your audience.
Did you break down spend by age demographic? Who spends the most on holidays? Well, this is, so as how many people spend, that's not what we presented. We presented ad spend by companies, so there's no age demographic there. But and breakdown by age for actual holiday spend, yeah, that's different data. So yeah. No, we did not.
Yeah.
So if this concludes the session, yeah?
Yeah, thank you very much for your questions. If you have questions to us personally, feel free to come to us after this presentation. And yeah, have a nice day on the exhibition.
Thank you. Thank you.
Feels like home.